All right. Another episode for Common Ground. Get
Absolutely.
excited. And you might want to get a little bit hungry because, I mean, it's almost dinner time now. We're going to be talking about fine dining, which I'm very excited for.
Hmm.
I'm glad I'm not doing it because for me, I love a good takeaway joy. But if you take me to a fancy restaurant, I'm kind of like, this looks expensive.
Mm. It's a lot of foams and smears on plates, isn't it?
A lot of fusion.
I'm
Yeah,
a
you
fancy boy
spend
though, Roger. That's you got to know this
I,
about me.
I do know this. For you, it's like gold plated, forks and knives for sure. So we're going to talk about fine dining today, which I think is really good. I think it's also very topical because it's something that is widely regarded as something that everyone enjoys, but you and anyone can kind of go out to a nice restaurant, and we're always trying to pretend like we kind of know what we're talking about when it comes to food, but I definitely don't. So this will be good. So I think the first thing we'll start with is let's talk about fine dining, what it is, how it started.
Firstly, what is fine dining? I think fine dining's changing. Like the definition of it's changing. But if I think about like the traditional definition of fine dining or cuisine in France, it's like white tablecloths, impeccable service. In most cases, it's a tasting menu. So, you don't necessarily order a la carte the dishes that you want, but there's a set menu that you kind of go through, which is kind of led by the chef. And these kinds of restaurants are also very chef dominant. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
that the chef is a personality behind the restaurant kind of thing. It's not like you just go there because you've heard they've got good food. You go there because chef so and so is the chef, and I want to be part of his journey or her journey in their vision. Haute cuisine, as we know it, like fine dining, has its roots in France, and they're kind of like palatial kitchens of the emperors and kings and queens of France from the 18th and
Mm,
19th century. The other reason that France is very dominant in fine dining is because of a little something called the Michelin Guide. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit later, what that is and how that came to be, and also how that's changing. But
mm.
that's the kind of other area.
It's pretty amazing when you actually watch a chef and their team in a kitchen work. It runs like a well-oiled machine. If you've ever watched the movie Chef or Bear, you kind of get a bit of a glimpse of just how chaotic and tough it is, right?
Hmm.
So, in terms of the chef, talk a little bit about their role and why is it so important that, with a restaurant, who their chef is and what story they're trying to tell.
I mean, I think the first thing to note is that in a fine dining restaurant, the chef, the person behind the restaurant, is probably not the person that's doing all the cooking, right? The chef, you can kind of think of a chef at a restaurant as the equivalent of the director of a movie. They provide kind of like the vision, create the menu, the structure, the direction, and they also quality control what the chefs under them are doing. It's very personality driven. And like I think
Mm,
ideally if you're the kind of person that really likes fine dining, you're looking for unique experiences that are like linked with a specific chef.
yeah.
One good example is if you've heard of Heston Blumenthal. He has a restaurant in London. He's kind of known as a leader in molecular gastronomy. So he brings like a very science-based perspective to cooking and does things with textures and formats that seem like unbelievable to people. They do something called a meat fruit, which looks like a piece of fruit, but it's actually made of meat. They're using insane techniques, and that's kind of like
Mm.
what I mean by the creative vision of the chef is what ends up on the plate.
The different personalities, I think, mean that's what people go for, right? It's like that different flavor and that different experience and what they're going to remember. In terms of that, premium fine dining, the rating system is widely regarded as the Michelin star rating system. Do
Mhm.
you want to talk a little bit about how that came to be and what it actually means?
Listen, a lot of people are confused about this, right? Because Michelin is a tire company, right?
Mm,
So people are like, why the hell am I listening to the tire company about where I should be eating and I shouldn't be eating,
yeah.
right? I'll tell you a little bit about the history. Michelin, yes, they are a tire company. And when cars first came out, people were like, where the hell am I going to drive my car to? Michelin knew the more people drove their car, the more tires they're going to need because they're going to wear out the tires. So they started writing these travel guides basically saying, here's all the places in France that you could visit. And they had this 3-star rating system. And originally, it basically meant 1 star is worth going to if you're nearby, 2-star is worth a detour. If you're driving from Paris to Nice, you can do a little detour and visit them. The 3-star is worth a special trip. So it's worth making that restaurant your destination. And that's
Yeah.
like what the star ratings kind of initially
Interesting.
meant. What is a Michelin star restaurant? What is makes a 3-star restaurant versus a 1-star or not getting a star? It's
Mm,
basically they have a scoring matrix. Anonymous inspectors come to the restaurant and they have points on service, on how extensive is the wine list, on the decor and ambience of the restaurant, and then obviously the
mm,
quality and presentation of the food. In my opinion, and like this is my personal opinion, what happens, especially in the 3-star Michelin category, the restaurants end up being very similar because they're all being graded against a scale and they know what that
mm,
scale roughly entails. And so they work to make their restaurant fit within that scale. And that's
mm.
probably like one of the criticisms of Michelin as well.
Yeah. Although it's really great of a 3-star Michelin star restaurant, it might be that a lot of the ones that people really go to a lot of the 2-star because they're, more different and more diverse, probably more range, is what you're saying.
Totally. And I think
Yeah.
another criticism of Michelin that we've seen in the past that they're trying to work to change is in the past they were very focused on French or European
Mm,
cuisine and the standards that entail that. It's like exclusionary of different styles of eating, like Asian street food, for instance, which can also
mm,
be have a lot of technique involved in it. But actually, we're seeing that in terms of Michelin, they're changing that a lot, and they're also rewarding restaurants that have a focus on reducing waste, like nose to tail restaurants and stuff like that. So it's definitely changing over time.
Yeah, and that's good, right? You're going to see more sustainability and different types of restaurants coming out rather than the traditional types. It's something that is global. Being a global stage, has there been big changes around cuisines and what type of cuisines are more popular? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, French, Italian, European still kind of dominates the fine dining scene. And in fact,
Mm,
even in other parts of the world, fine dining is typically still synonymous with European techniques, but maybe using local ingredients. Is that the right thing? It's hard to say. I think we're
mm,
seeing now more acceptance of, different kinds of styles, different kinds of cuisines from around the world. I think now actually there's more Michelin star restaurants in Japan than there is in France. So you can see that it's kind of shifting. We're seeing now like more African restaurants, Thai restaurants, Peruvian restaurants also gaining their stars in different cities. I think the main difference or changes that I'm seeing is the fact that in the past, fine dining was also synonymous with formality. Wear a jacket and tie, white tablecloth, all this kind of stuff. That's probably the thing that I've seen change the most in the last little while. Seeing it be a lot more casual, still amazing service, amazing food, amazing experience. Maybe there's a course that you eat with your hands, waiters that are wearing t shirts instead of suits, but still providing that amazing, unique experience, but not in a, let's say, stuffy kind of way.
I think stuff is an interesting word because I definitely gone to the nice restaurants and you have an amazing experience, but I've also had amazing food and wonderful experiences in places which are hole in the wall or someone's grandma's cooking the food.
Mm-hmm.
This is sensational, right? So it'd be really nice to kind of see those kind of restaurants also getting that type of traffic. So we always like to leave the listeners with a question to impress or to bring up if, fine dining becomes a topic of conversation, what we want to leave them with.
As I kind of said a few times today, Michelin, for better or worse, is still kind of the standard bearer for fine dining cuisine. And the ratings and the stars that Michelin provides are super important in the fine dining world. However, does that mean that they should decide what's good or that French standards are the best standards, right? I think a question to ask would be like, now that you see Michelin expanding into Istanbul, Mexico City, is that reshaping what we as the world see as fine dining?
Yeah.
And is that a good thing? Is that something that we want? So I think that's a great conversation. Honestly, any conversation about food is a great conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's always going to be pretty satisfied. So that's all the time I've got for Common Ground today. We hope you learned something today. I definitely did. I'm even more hungry than I was before. So I'm definitely going to go see what kind of service I'm going to get at the next restaurant. Thanks, David. That was really, really good. And hopefully we'll catch everybody on the next one.